can hear us. Alright, say something.
Bitch.
Wow. First words on a stream. Okay,
Yep.
I'll have to edit that. Alright, let's pop over.
I didn't know you already had fucking activated it.
Mm-hmm.
You never do that with me around.
Oh.
Anyway, pop it.
Okay. I will ping it now. That's weird. We'll give it a good 2 minutes and then we'll just get started there, Vi.
Give it what, sorry?
We'll give it 2 minutes and then we'll just get started. I'll give people time to come in. Alrighty, let's see if I can open up the text chat so I can keep an eye on that. Welcome. We'll be starting in just another minute or so, so just bear with us. We had some technical issues getting slapped around like a fish. Let's see. Okay. Remember, there's a text chat, so just remember to click the little stupid chat bubble if you want to know why we're still waiting. We'll just got another 2 minutes till we're getting started. Well, 1 minute now.
Good old chat bubble.
Yeah, and I'll be monitoring YouTube as well, so that way if you get any anything interesting or whatever, I'll just pick that out there of our.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm in the office at the moment.
No worries. Hello. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hit the ticket off, I guess.
What was that, sorry?
Oh, let's go ahead and get started.
Oh, okay. Welcome, everybody. It's been a while. We're here with the bi-weekly podcast. With Robert.
Hello.
So kicking this off, let's talk about the carrier and its implementation. So finally the carrier's in,
Yeah.
and well, it's in the experimental branch. Um, so how was its release? Did it go smoothly? Did it go exactly how you wanted? Did it? Yeah.
Well, it's taking a little bit longer than I'd like in terms of basically its implementation. I think I kind of briefly hit upon it in the post that I put up on Steam and a couple times on Discord. Is that we ended up having to work around and write a lot of custom solutions in the engine to kind of get it to function and move in the way that we needed it to. Um, some things that we thought were going to work didn't really work out that great. So we ended up going with like a kind of explain it. We ended up having to go with like a hybrid of what we thought was going to work originally. We went with almost like a spline based system where it's almost like a preset path around the world, and then it's allowed to deviate from that path based off of line traces and other things like that. That essentially, so like long paths are more curated. If you want to go around an island, it'll hook into like a lane, and it will basically that's the fastest way around. But other times, like if it's a direct line of sight path, then it will just basically just go off the spline and deviate the said location. We found that was like the simplest and easiest way of doing it. And then like little things like we ended up making it to where like it's technically flying because there's no like swimming state in our game. So we ended up having to like that's why sometimes you guys would notice that like it would levitate off of the water and like the water line would be too high or too low at times when you gave too many move orders. So we ended up just kind of working around how the engine just kind of handles water, how the engine kind of handles movement, and essentially just kind of wrote our own custom implementation that it works. It took a little bit longer than I'd like, but it works great. It's getting to where it needs to be. I feel like in another week or so, it will be a lot more ironed out, a lot more feature complete in terms of basically the pathfinding. Because one of the biggest things we wanted to implement the sway, we didn't want to do what we did with the vehicles. When the vehicles turn on a dime, they're unrealistic, they're just all sorts of crazy. So we spent a little bit more time just kind of tweaking and adjusting them. In the sake of just getting a couple more features out, we paused some more of like the high level turning and swaying and drag that happens from the water dispersion to the end so we can get the last of the big line items out for the carrier. Um, so like right now technically it works, but we still have a little bit more like finessing and adjustment we want to do to the carrier, and especially those hedge cases where people can get it to like almost turn into like a SWAT. Because if you're really good at like faking out the movement, you could get the carrier to SWAT units 1,000 feet away. If you like move it really close to the shore and then you start spamming move orders, it will like freak out and like go and like almost like swivel over land masses, and that object has collision, so it will actually like ping pong shoot someone if it hits someone. And while it's doing that kind of movement, we think we eradicated most of those instances, but I'm sure there are still some that remain. I was thinking about having it to where after around Monday, Tuesday is when I would argue that we'll have the recruitment's going in tonight. So I'm cooking a patch like right now as we talk. And then like weapons will come in Monday, Tuesday with like a document upgrade for the engineering added in. And then after that it'll be the hovercraft. So then the hovercraft will come in maybe hopefully by Friday. It just kind of depends in terms of basically if like we run into any last minute issues there. And then after the hovercraft and after we do beaching, we'll go back and do a little bit more polish, finessing, and just look at the movement of all the units and make sure everything's moving realistically, but not to the point where it kind of tears down gameplay and it's too slow. And it's too realistic to where it's like, okay, this is a little annoying. So that's almost where we draw the line where it's like, okay, this is realistic, but it's not fun. So we have to kind of tweak it and play with it as we go to just kind of get it to where it needs to be. Does that answer all your questions there, Var?
Yeah, they can answer them all pretty much.
Excellent.
Touching base on the hovercraft is where did its conception come from? Like,
So,
how did you come up with the idea of the hovercraft?
So the hovercraft came from a place of we were running into a lot of technical issues in terms of basically being able to reliably get that aircraft carrier onto a shoreline and then have enough shorelines to accommodate it. We were getting a little bit concerned as we got closer and closer to that. It was more of like, it would be cool, but I don't think it's going to work out. So we had to pivot to the hovercraft idea. And the hovercraft idea came from, I mean, it was either going to be that or it was going to be the World War II trench boats, but a more modern version of it. And we kind of pivoted towards the hovercraft because of its maneuverability, and basically you can transport a lot more units on it. They're massive. So, we pivoted in that direction. And because of the work that we've done with the hovercraft, theoretically we've already done most of the work for its movement systems. And it's a matter of just having it to where it switches over to another drive or another like subroutine when you get onto the beaches because it needs to almost move like a vehicle when it's there. So there's going to be a little bit of finessing and adjustment there. And generally, the direction we're going into for the hovercraft is that we're going to add a button onto the aircraft carrier where it's like you can move units onto the elevators. And then when the elevator hits the bottom floor, you'll get a pop up. And then you would basically transfer units into whatever hovercraft you want to put them into. And then from there, you'd have a button to basically just open the door. And then you'd be able to just tell the hovercraft deploy. And then at that point, the hovercraft leaves said, aircraft carrier. You're given control, and then basically you can tell them to go wherever you want, and they'll have a gas just like every other unit, and then have a health bar just like every other unit. Um, and you're gonna want to basically give them security. You're gonna want to have like maybe some little birds covering them, maybe some Apaches, things like that. So basically, because they're gonna be kind of squishy to a certain degree, because it's an inflatable, like fabric, whatever it's called. I forget the exact name. I think is it bulletproof to a certain degree, Derivar? I don't remember.
I do believe it is bulletproof to a certain degree.
Yeah, so like you figure the idea is that we don't want to make them like these god unstoppable units. So like they're still gonna be, like you're gonna want to protect them. And the one thing we'll play with is if your units can shoot from them as you're coming onto the beaches. Because theoretically, with all the research and all the videos I've watched, they have a clear line of sight to where they're going. And it's only the sides and the back that sometimes are obscured. So those are things that we'll kind of experiment with as we get closer to that, and I'll have more details when we meet the next time. Because in roughly when we meet for the next bi-weekly is when the aircraft carrier should be in, or we'll be on the precipice of putting it in there, and we'll be able to kind of talk about more of like the nitty-gritty details of that. So there's that. Anything else you want to hit upon, Derivar?
So the side skirts, which are the inflatable areas on the LCACs,
Yes.
are not bulletproof. They can be penetrated by bullets.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, that makes sense. And then on top of that, you gotta worry about the spitter acid, so that's always fun. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, well, you could melt through that shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Arc the Fennec Fox actually puts in a really good one here. I just saw it pop up. Could also bring the AAV, the Marine Corps Amphibious Assault Vehicle.
Yeah, that's the one I was referencing. I don't remember the exact abbreviation, but that was the other one that Dimitri, one of our artists, was talking about. And then we went the direction of the hovercraft. It just seemed more modern. So that was the direction we wanted to try, go in, and just basically experiment with, see how people like it, and just use that as the landing craft, and just kind of go from there. Where do you want to go from there?
One second, I just closed Discord. So,
Okay.
Yeah. Brain malfunctioning.
No, you're good.
Anyway, so let's talk on the Mobile Infantry Corps for the doctrines.
Sure.
Is it the doctrines?
Yeah, that is the doctrines.
So let's touch base on the 4 bullet points here you made in the announcement. So the Bradley ultimate requires the airfield call-in, as well as the Marine call-in, the Scout Car, and the M252 mortar. What are they going to do in terms of
Copy and paste those in the podcast.
So
we had a meeting in January, around the 8th, I believe it was, and the biggest point was to basically look at what people are talking about on Discord, look at what people are talking about on YouTube, just Reddit, anywhere, and just kind of see what do they want. Like, what do they want us to kind of expand on? And it seems like a lot of people like the infantry. Like, some people just... I think part of that is also because we need to work on a lot for the vehicle pathfinding. But I think there's just a lot of love and admiration for infantry and just kind of getting out there and getting your hands dirty. So we wanted to build the Bradley around the idea that it could shield your units a little bit more so than the Striker, and it brought a lot of weapons to the field. And then that way, the idea would be is it has a larger transport capability, so it's better than the Striker, it's better armor, it has better weapons. So it's the step up in terms of basically like giving a little more infantry support for the juggernauts and whatnot. And then the idea was that we wanted to balance these super weapons around aircraft fields. Aircraft, like, like just, yeah. So essentially, we were going to take the two aircraft fields that we have in the game, and we were going to make it to where they're guarded and they're kind of like taken over by like a rebel group or whatever, or heavily armored. So you can't just immediately go there on day one and then just claim it and then just start pumping out high-tech units. You kind of have to build up to it, assault the airfields, one of the airfields, take ownership of it, and then from there you're able to use logistics of essentially like bringing in higher tier units to like kind of turn the tide, and at the same time other people will know you have that airfield and they'll target you because of it. So you almost generate threat by having that airfield, because everyone on the map is looking at you. They're like, well, if we let him or her take that airfield, they're going to be bringing in Abrams, Bradleys, the Karens, which is the Apaches, and then you're going to be in real deep shit for like them. So the idea will be is holding those airfields will trigger the infected, the civilian groups that don't like you, to kind of go out of their way and try and reclaim that territory, build over that territory. So that will kind of come as part as the doctrinal changes that we have kind of proposed, where kind of make it to where like you have strategic resources. And it kind of segues into some of the other bullet points, but we felt that was important to kind of like the longevity of the game is to interject more ways of just kind of like playing it, and we felt that was a good direction to go in. And then on top of that, I love Company Heroes. Company Heroes was the game where I used to play every day, all day for like 8 hours, just constant matches. The original,
Yeah,
the original, the original OG. I'm not talking about 2 or 3.
First Company Heroes was awesome.
Yeah, and that's where we wanted to go, and we've been wanting to go in this direction for a long time, is adding in units that are prefabrications that like are just like an assembled unit, a group. So when you call in like the Marines, they'll airdrop in or whatever, and then it's just a bunch of individual units, but they're a cluster. So you can basically like it's better than the barracks almost. They're a little bit lower health. They're between a civilian dynamic civilian group, a recruitable, and an assault. So like they're a unit you can call in a desperate moment just to kind of hold the line. They're really cheap. They'll get airdropped in. They'll come in with randomly selected weapons from the Marine arsenal, and they'll just basically like, a quick little partisan group you can use just to kind of hold the line as you're getting reinforcements in. That way you can kind of span that based off of the cooldown to kind of like bide yourself time in those desperate moments where you wish you had like a unit you could just call in that moment. And then the other thing was we had a scout car. And that scout car didn't really see that much utilization. The Humvee replaced it. So we've been kind of waiting for a moment to kind of reintroduce that scout car with like a unit like either Delta Force or some kind of like different unit that we can kind of have already pre-garrisoned in it. So then that way it's almost like a really quick like team you can just call down, they deploy, they get in the car, and then at that point you can drive them around, do drive-bys or whatever. And it's like a really quick scout unit. So that was the other idea, was kind of pushing around that idea of like Marines or some kind of like special forces unit that would kind of be in that car. We're still debating the idea of giving it a grenade launcher, but right now we're settled on the idea regardless if everyone in that car could shoot. So you drop down the car. It's like one of those like really lightweight scout cars. If anyone like was here in 2020, 2021, you'll remember that really old Paragyne scout car that we kind of like retired because no one ever built it. Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna be bringing that back in and giving it a facelift and giving it more of like an early to mid game call in under the mobile infantry that will kind of help you like scout, do harassment, and just kind of give you some more situational awareness. And then the last aspect was we wanted to give indirect fire to the infantry. We wanted to give them something where they didn't have to rely on armor for their mortars, for their indirect fire. So we settled on having the engineer having a mortar. and having it to where he can deploy it, he can shoot it, and essentially that way you can kind of use it because like you think about it is that a mortar can go places that a striker can't in terms of like alleys, and they have more mobility. Because when we start to push more in the direction of what I proposed a long time ago, where like some of the areas in the level will kind of change based off of the level of chaos, it'll make some areas inaccessible unless you clear it with the debris tool. And that was something we wanted to push like as an auxiliary item in 1.4 or 1.5, where it's kind of like just sitting there on the TBD section of our roadmap. And we wanted to have like take out all the clutter, take out all the cars, and have it procedural, where like if you leave certain areas alone, more clutter, trash, cars, like the buildings will seem more decayed because we're simulating that things are going on in those areas. But if you have a green or a yellow zone, they're more clean, pristine, it's easier to get around, that kind of deal. So then that way we're kind of feeding into the system of like dynamic storytelling is the idea, and utilizing some of their procedural generation tools that they kind of like have in the engine, or using just simple blueprint prefabs that we just have algorithms that just say, oh, these areas are conflict zones, the players haven't been in them in so long, these factions have been fighting for so long, let's put some buildings on fire, let's make some more traffic jams, let's dirty this place up a little bit. So that kind of goes into like why we're kind of going for the mortar is like some of the things that you guys don't know that we have planned. That's really obscure. We've talked about it. We've hinted about it in the past, and we're kind of waiting until we get to like the co-op. And then once the co-op is done, we're gonna start going through all these like tiny little line items that just kind of add the icing on the cake to make it a more like living, breathing world. Because that's the goal, is to kind of make it to where it's a more active simulation of a virus and the parties that would come to play as the world deteriorates. Anyhow, back to you, Duravar. What else do we got?
See, the world deteriorating is such a cool little idea. I love that.
Yeah, and like you figure, I recently watched a show, The Dead City, for The Walking Dead, and like you figure it covered New York. And like that, I got another couple of cool ideas in terms of when I was watching that show, and it was just kind of like what they were doing with like the city and just the devastation and like the Zeds being able to fall from skyscrapers and all that. That was all fascinating, and that was all really cool because those are all things that we've wanted to do. And some of them are coming in like when we do the AI passes, is we're going to be looking at infected being able to climb the structures and being able to come down the structures, whether it be falling and taking some damage, or being able to climb or jump down them, like the spitters and the juggernauts being able to just, what's the word? Rampage their way up the side of a building. So you thought you were safe on that tall roof? Nope. But it's one of those things where like they had all those cool little like environmental designs and all those cool little like set dressings of like how the world deteriorated. And that's something that I want to kind of figure out how to do procedurally. Or we can just have every world tell its own story. Because every game devolves like, like differently. Like Duravar plays one way. I play another way. Like everyone plays a different way. And the beauty of it is trying to figure out how to do that in a realistic manner that's not going to blow up people's computers, but add up the ante in terms of atmosphere, because you figure I know the atmosphere is kind of lacking, and some of that is just because of budget allocation, where it's like we can't afford to do all this extra VO, we can't afford to do all this extra character stuff, so we push more of like the features and the stuff on line items on the roadmap, and then I think around the time that we get the co-op to right before co-op, I imagine we'll have a pickup. Then we'll be able to go back and we'll be able to add more announcer sounds, and we'll be able to basically get more squad VO done and kind of push the immersion aspects of what I'm talking about, where it's like, and then some of it will be beyond. Because, I mean, again, I've mentioned this again and again and again, and Cepheus Protocol is not just we get to 1.4, 1.5 and we're done. That's just the beginning. That's just like literally, to my mind, that's the game is like, okay, like that's just the beginning of our path of kind of figuring out things. And kind of trying to expand, kind of like how Stellaris handles their development, where it's like you thought releasing it was be done, and then they just keep upping the ante and adding new mechanics and systems that people want to see. Anyhow, back to you, Duravar, because now I'm just going on and on and on.
That's alright. Talking about announcers, just the Arcturus men's Gwen.
I love Arcturus Minx. He's so fucking good.
Such a good fucking.
Every time we play StarCraft 2 co-op, he just won't shut the hell up. But he's great.
You,
Like,
you, you play Nova, right? You play
she
Nova.
doesn't
She's a
talk.
ghost. She doesn't talk. Whereas Arcturus Minsk never shuts up.
Oh, I know, and it's just like, oh god.
I will rule. I will rule this sector, or see it burn to ashes around.
Yeah.
That's such a good fucking voice line.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Minsk, my beloved. Yes, I've got more people who like Minsk.
I love Minx. He's a G. Like, I love his voice. I love his charisma. Like, he's just a good villain. But anyhow, what else have we got? That's the next one.
We're getting so far off topic.
Yeah.
Minsk forever. Just the whole Discord thing's just going on.
Yeah, I know. I love him. He's great.
Alarak is way better egomaniac. Oh shit, yeah. You can never have anything bigger than Alarak's ego. Anyway, Armored Core, the Abrams.
Let me copy and paste that into the channel so I know what we're talking about.
I've already done it.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool. So, Armored Core. Obviously, the biggest one is the Abrams. And what we're going to be experimenting with in the Abrams, and if people like it, we'll roll it out to other units, is weapon armor packages. So, we wanted to do like the Tusk and the Cage and like an active denial systems because we're going to introduce RPGs at the same time for dynamic civilian groups. So then that way you can kind of build your Abrams based off of how you're going to be playing the game. So if you're fighting civilians and they're using RPGs, you want to maybe spec into active denial systems. You want to maybe get the more higher end armor for this repelling basically RPGs, or maybe because you do the active denial, you go a little bit cheaper on the armor, or you go with the Cage armor for the Abrams instead of going with the higher test kit, I believe it was. So the idea is you can take your pros and your cons of like, well, I want to put extra money in this part of the tank, but I don't want to spend too much into that. And then the idea is that you can change out some of the basic weapons of the Abrams in terms of basically it's side weapons. So we allow you to kind of change like the. Actually, I have a list here. I'll post it. It's in our Patreon channel. So let me scroll up and find it because one of our Patreons actually asked about it recently. Sorry, excuse me, hiccups. So that's the idea of what we want to bring to the Abrams, or like you could change out those weapon slots, and then you have the armor kits, and then you have the weapon slot 3, which is basically like defense. So in some cases, weapon slot 3 is sometimes moved down to 4, but like in the case of the Abrams, you get the M256 smooth bore, which is the primary. We don't plan for a second, like switching that out just yet. Then for the weapon slot 2, you can go with the M240 or the 50 cal. And for weapon slot 3, it's the smoke canisters or the active protection system. And then you can see for the Bradley, it's the, which I brushed upon earlier, it'd be the Bushmaster for the first one. It would be the M240C medium machine gun for weapon slot 2. It'd be toes. And then weapon slot 4 is really the one you can get to customize on the Bradley. And that's generally how we're kind of going when it comes to that regard. But yeah, the Abrams, the Bradley, the Chimera, like the Apache, are going to be in their rights like super weapons, where you bring them on and they're meant to combat Leviathan. They're meant to combat the Juggernaut and and Chelsea's Elite Guard that we're currently still in the works of getting conceptualized and finalized. So yeah, there's a lot coming down the pipe, and then we're still on the fence about adding a little bit more to the Armored Core because they have so much already. One of the other things that we were going to add was a mine deploying atlas, where the idea is we were going to get rid of the engineers placing individual mines, and we were going to make it to where you just like almost paint an area, and then the atlas just goes out there and keeps the saturation of mines to a certain percent. And then that way it gets rid of that hand-holdy, babysitting, micromanagement that you've had with the current mines because they just blow up too often to be useful. And then the other aspect is being able to, what's the word I'm thinking of? The mines will go over to the sniper, essentially. We'll either give the sniper claymores or mines, because one of the things we want to do in the CERC doctrine stuff that's not really stipulated, it's not really explained that well, is we want to give the units more abilities, like giving the engineers turrets they can place down, and then getting the proper turrets designed for the current ones. And we'll have more to show for that towards the mid to the end point of basically doing like the CERC doctrine revamps. Because first up is the Abrams and kind of getting in that stuff in, and then we'll kind of trickle in the other stuff. What else, Durvar?
I think I'm just having an issue with the copy paste feature on my computer. My computer's having a brain fart.
It hates you. But I don't play
Yeah,
that.
well, what doesn't hate me?
I can do it. I already have it copied and pasted.
There we go, I already got it.
Okay.
Engineering core. So T3 walls. Let's start with T3 walls. So what are they going to look like, and how are they going to have an effect on defense?
So tier 3 walls are something we've wanted to do for years, and there's been a technical issue where basically we have not been able to get around. I guess let me explain this in the simplest way possible. Is that in the engine there's like dynamic with modifiers, and static, and we use dynamic with modifiers. And the problem is that the engine is very, very restrictive in terms of building new navigation on a new object at an elevated position. It's very buggy. It's very hit or miss. So we ended up having, ironically, by doing the carrier and doing some of the more recent stuff that we've done, we found a way of doing tier 3 walls. And tier 3 walls are essentially going to be battlements. If you've anyone seen Resident Evil Apocalypse, basically I keep referencing this, is it's like that scene where they close the walls when the virus reaches the doors, where it's basically like it's a concrete or kind of like a wall, and then you have like a battlement where you can have troops on top of the wall, and it's like a good like 4 to 5 feet thick, and then you have poles on both sides. So like Resident Evil Apocalypse, the bridge scene is the easiest scene that I can reference in your imagination to kind of like give you an idea of what I'm talking about. And we've kind of figured out from carrier and other stuff how to transfer units in between segments and kind of how we would do it conceptually from just kind of working up to it in baby steps almost. So that's something cool that I'm excited for, is to do tier 3 battlement walls. And then you have the DNA farming atlas. And that was kind of, I think that was brought up, I think it was one of our moderators that brought it up. And basically, he was telling the idea where it was like we should have like a farming atlas, and then one of our technical artists latched onto the idea, and then he was petitioning for it, and then he was like, "Fuck it, fine, we'll do it. We'll do it. It's a good idea. I like it because not everyone wants to go out there and play Pokemon for capturing all. Got to catch them all for the DNA that falls on the floor. So I can understand where it's like adding other ways of getting a resource is great, based off of just giving the player more choices of how to play the game. So, we gave the option of farming DNA from infected civilians by putting them in cages. We gave the way of gathering DNA from killing infected. But now this is the third way, where it's going to be basically you take an atlas, you park it in our contagion zone, and that basically starts a horde mode, where essentially the moment you deploy it and you start actively, passively generating DNA, everybody in that zone that's infected knows your address. And they're going to come with everything they got. So the idea is it's a risk versus reward, where it's like, you could go into weaker zones and maybe leech off some DNA and it's easier to defend. But if you go into like a really high level contagion zone where Chelsea's been saving up juggernauts and leviathans and birds, she's going to call everyone to that location to basically overwhelm you, destroy the atlas, and stop you from basically recovering the DNA. Because it's going to be a risk versus reward all the way to the finish line. It's not going to be you just park this atlas and then it just goes to your DNA and then GG, you can let it get destroyed. No, you got to get that atlas back to a medical center and deposit your DNA. So you're going to have a Chinook ready to go with guards, or maybe you have multiple plans where it's like, hey, I'm going to send a ground team, I'm going to set up and post snipers, It's going to be like 28 weeks later, where we're going to make like layers of defenses, and we're guarding basically this inner thing that's farming DNA for me. And then if those layered defenses start to fall, I have a Chinook in reserve, so that way I can bring him in and extract it, and then the people on the ground are maybe cannon fodder. So then that, or you can bring engineers in and start building walls, and then build the Atlas there, and then build turrets and all that, and build like a defense and try and farm it that way. Like, it's all in your court in terms of strategically, how are you going to extract this resource? We give you the tools, and it's like, okay, good luck. Now you know what's coming your way, and it's going to get gradually harder. And as you're in that zone, they're not going to stop coming. It's either, they're going to force you to leave at one time or another, because they're going to, at that point, they're going to get so pissed, they're going to start sending 6 Juggernauts. They're going to start sending 3 Leviathans. They're going to send 10 birds groups. They're going to send as much units as they possibly can and redirect from every other war zone, because you're stealing from them now directly. It's almost like they're leeching off of your money when you're in a zone, kind of deal. Now you're leeching off of how they grow and how they expand. So they're gonna take it as a greater threat than you just attacking them, and then you just whatever else. Like, they're gonna send everything they got. So I'm really, really excited for this, because it's gonna be basically a whole new way of playing the game. It's gonna open up a whole new approach of farming. And I'm really, really interested to see the strategies that emerge from this gameplay approach. From this mechanic, But anyhow, back to you, Derivar. Or do you have any questions about that?
I did, but my brain went, yeah, nah, fam, you're not going to remember those.
Okay. Yeah, but I think it's really exciting, and I can't wait until we get that in there, because, you figure, we're going to have an experimental just with that, where it's going to be, a week, or it's going to be hey, try and break it. Try and survive. What are your time limits on how long you can survive from these hordes? And then people find little exploits, little easy ways to do it. Then we'll look at it, and we'll be like, we're going to have a fix for that tomorrow. Don't you worry, buddy. We're coming for you.
Don't you worry, Rob. I will break it. I promise you that. You know how well I am at fucking breaking shit.
Oh, I know. But the thing is that you figure, at that point, we might just have it to where, Chelsea will start that, because, it comes down to the AI strategy as moves and counter moves, just like chess. Where it's let's say you go and you do that, and then basically it's okay, now we have to have Chelsea to where she's more confident, more conscious of saving more tokens for spawning the Leviathan, for spawning the Juggernaut. So then, maybe she realizes you keep doing this, she's going to save 4 tokens on the Juggernaut. She's going to put them down in 4 unique locations, tell them all to attack the same location from those 4 locations, and then send in standard, infected, and blow-up guys, basically, to supplement them. So then at that point, it's okay, now you're starting to get to that point where they're actually going to make you have to pull your, what I mean? Sometimes you're going to have to cut your losses, and you're going to have to leave your units to die. And those are the moments that are the best in the game, where you have to make those really hard choices. And being able to get it to that point and have it be a regular, reoccurring theme, that's the hard part. That's what I'm working towards, is I want to have it to where, it's what's the word? Well, we used to use this term so often internally. The Dark Souls of RTS games, where it's there are times where you're going to have to make a hard decision. It's like the killing of civilians. It's that's another thing. Yeah, it's easier. Makes the game easier. And you figure it's kind of like The Walking Dead. There are no good and bad guys. It's all gray. You're just trying to live. You're trying to survive. And it's basically just trying to give those choices to the player. And then, like a sandbox, okay, it's up to you guys now. Figure it out. So that's the cool part. Anyhow, back to you, Darvar.
Okie dokie. On to the Air Force Corps.
Yay! So, the Air Force Corps is something we've wanted to do for a long time. And we've gotten a lot of questions, a lot of people asking about it. And we're creating it in preparation for jets. I have no idea when we're going to basically implement the jets. But it's more of a first step towards that. There were some discussions about pushing off co-op and putting in like 3 to 4 jets and then doing the co-op, but it came down to like we wanted to just kind of start the framework, and then maybe after co-op, or maybe if we get some free time and we're ahead of schedule, we'll sneak in 1 to 2 types of jets. We definitely want to go into the direction of like, something that's compact, because that aircraft carrier only stages some like special jets per se. So we were going to play around with the idea of like those special, like really small compact jets that you could use to bomb, kind of like Empire Earth 2, or if anyone remembers Command and Conquer Zero Hour, like those kind of like jets, the airfields that you would have where you'd have to like send them out. They have a limited amount of bombs, and then they'd automatically come back to your base, refill, and then you could send them back. And they're not as powerful as an airfield, like an airstrike, sorry, because airstrikes would always be larger, radial, but then the more direct precision stuff we'd give maybe in like the fighter crafts and whatnot, and the bombers. But it's one of those things where essentially we want to lay the framework, lay the groundwork, and then get to it when we can, you know. And there were a couple of different types we were looking at, and realistically, most of it is just we're gonna create the artwork. We're gonna move the branch over, we're gonna have a little section there, Air Force Corps, have the logo, move the Sharon, move the Merlin, add the new VTOL, add all of the weapon packages that we're adding for the helicopters there, move the Shawnee over all the way at the bottom, and then from there, basically just build up. And let me see if I can find the list of the speculative aircraft. I believe it was in my realm on the other development Discord. Let me see if I can find it. It was the... Dang it. We were looking at Hornets, Reapers. Yeah, we were looking at the Hornets, the Reapers, and that was pretty much it. Was basically just to start off with. And again, those are all speculative and things that we're still debating internally in terms of the best time to push it. And then at the other thing, I realized that we breezed over the MLRS. Which list was that in? Oh no, man, that wasn't the engineering. I'm mistaken. I'm sorry. I'm going crazy over here. Actually, we skipped over some of the engineering stuff, Derivar.
Have we?
Yeah, we forgot the C-Wiz, and I'll speed run this. I'll speed run this, and we'll get back to engineering. Is that you figure what's coming next week is going to be a new section of the engineering core where you can research into weapons for the aircraft carrier, and then you'll have preset emplacements so you can basically on the aircraft carrier you'll click a button. Like on the bottom right, it'll just be upgrades, pending upgrades or whatever. You click on it, and then you can just basically buy weapons that go to preset locations, and it will allow your aircraft carrier to auto-target units, auto-target based off of the capabilities of that weapon. So if anyone has played World of Warships, you know what I'm talking about. Where you have the auto cannons, and you have basically, the anti-air flak guns, everything just works, basically. And it just does it automatically based off of proximity and line of sight. So that's something with the Sea-Wiz, the Sparrow, and the Bushmasters. And then we'll be pushing and adding in a carrier improved detection spanner, so then that way you have a better idea of like where you are in terms of how many infected people you've kind of like evacuated. It'll give you a little bit more of a grace period. So that's a research we kind of want to go down in terms of like giving the carrier more upgrades down that tree, and then also giving the players more visual feedback in terms of like you just evacuated a bunch of infected civilians. Good luck. Now they're going to like turn on your deck and start attacking people. And the idea is that the mast is going to have a health bar. So if infected get on the deck via the Leviathan spitting out his children, via the spitters jumping onto the deck, or like standard infected getting turned and then getting on the deck, they'll just run to your little mast where you build the units from, and they'll just hit that. And then if that gets destroyed, the carrier dies, you lose. If the Leviathan will just melee the carrier as a whole. So the birds will go for the mast, and basically attack the map. So most of the creatures will go for that central communications tower, get on the deck, and then melee that. The really big giant structures, creatures will melee the ship as a whole and try to just sink it. And then the last thing is the MRLS. We wanted to basically add a higher tier of the striker mortar that was more directional, and basically it was like fire. It was like fire and forget, where it has like a limited amount of ammo. You fire it, and then you have to take it back, and it's very expensive to fire. And it's basically just a rapid succession, like really quick, like stream of missiles. So it's a step up. It's like Nephil Warfers from Company Heroes. I'm sure people remember those. Well, that was the idea. Nephil Warfare. Those little pieces of shit where like the Germans would get them, and then they'd just spam you to death with them. When you play Company Heroes, like I hated Nephil Warfers. The whistle.
Annoying fucking sound you
So
hear.
yeah, the whistle. It was just so over the top. But anyhow, let me jump back down to the engineering. So we just where was that? Oh no, we were on the Air Force. I'm sorry. So we'll jump down to the Air Force. That's it in a nutshell of basically what we're planning, what things are coming down the pipe in the next month or so. I'm trying to think. And then let me see if I can pull up the. Oh, you forgot the other parts. The parts at the top. The airfield. We did airfield super units. We can talk about strategic resources and chaos destruction. So you want to hit up strategic resources, Duravar?
Let's hit up strategic resources.
Okay, I'll copy and paste that.
What would the strategic resources be?
So this has kind of been one of those things that we want to push into. So slowly but surely, baby steps. I'm talking baby steps here. We're working towards making the infected playable. We're starting to basically iron out, like what would be a player's goal as playing as them. And a huge part of the infected is going to be strategic resources, but a huge part of the faction interplay we want, kind of level like Total War, is we want strategic resources that can buff units and can give, essentially like a saving grace when you're in the shithole. So that could be as simple as healing your units if you're by a hospital. It could be as simple as getting ammo if you're by a police station. It could be as simple as getting gas if you're by a gas station. And those are all things that we're looking at in terms of like making the world more of a character, more of an element to how you go about strategically planning where you build, when you build, and what could get you out of a jam sometimes. Because you figure, having these strategic resources, the dynamic civilian groups are going to hog them, but they're not really going to use them heavily. It's going to be mostly for the CERC. They'll use a small amount, but we're not going to have it to where like the civilians will just like empty the map, because that would make it boring. We want to make it to where like this is mostly a player resource, a real person player resource. They'll maybe use like 10 to 20% of it over a really, really long game. And this will come down to the balancing, of course, as well. But that's generally the direction we want to go in. And it would be, let me think what else was there. MO depots, power stations, gas stations, medical buildings, police stations, and hospitals. So right now, what our technical artist is doing is he's making the realistic water. He's making it to where the aircraft carrier conforms to the water conforms and moves around and reacts to the hovercraft and to the aircraft carrier. Once he finishes that, the technical art, then he's moving on to this, where you're going to see buildings just disappear and replaced with a police station. With a medical, like there's already enough hospitals. With, more gas stations strategically placed evenly around the map. So the map is going to change a little bit. And how you play the map is going to change with it. So it's almost like a Fortnite approach to basically like as more mechanics and systems are added and baked into the game, the map is going to evolve with it. And then those changes will inform what we do when we go back to finishing San Francisco North. Because that's mostly on hold right now. It is on hold by all intents and purposes because we only have 5 people on the team. 2 artists are level designers and modelers. Those 2 artists are completely dragged down working on the doctrine stuff, working on basically getting all this stuff ironed out. So when the doctrine stuff is done, they'll move back to San Francisco North. because we need that for the campaign regardless. But essentially, like that's generally the direction we're going in, and I'm really excited to see that part because you figure it's going to add a lot more layers to like where you build and how you build. We're not gonna. I don't. We're not gonna go the level of RNGing it. It's gonna be like the police station's always there, and the hospitals are always here. There's an area where you can go to claim it, and then if you're in that area passively, it'll heal your units. It'll give you ammo. It will, refill your gas tanks, like that kind of stuff. Um, City lights are something that basically we wanted to do, and then we realized that it was going to nuke people's video cards. So
Yeah.
we gave up. Well, real talk, we just gave up because you figure the dynamic lighting that we have already in the level, with paired with just a couple of like street lights that we have, we're causing overdraw. That basically it's the same reason why we don't allow you guys to build spotlights that cross beams because the game engine does not know what to do when you have that many dynamic lights overlapping each other, turning on and off, moving, you know. So I think it's also why when you play City Skylines and all those other games, when you start to get bigger cities, you notice that your frame rate starts to dip. I believe it's based off of just all the simulation and all the overlapping lights and all of like the aspects that come together. I didn't work on those teams, but it's an assumption. Because as far as I know, there's only one game engine that solved this, and it's Sandbox, CryEngine, essentially. That you can have as many dynamic lights in that game, and they're using magic, and it just works. But they haven't solved that in the Unreal Engine as far as we're aware. Because the more lights you add to a scene, it multiplies the destruction of your frames. Like it literally, like if you go in, like if you were to go in and install the Unreal Engine right now, and you were to put like 4 or 5 spotlights, and then add more, and then add more, and then add more, you notice your frames would go down for every spotlight you add by like it would like 5 to 10 frames for every couple of spotlights you add. It's the reason why also if you notice the flashlights when you turn them on, if you don't have a really good beefy video card, your frame rate will dip when you turn on flashlights. It's another reason why we turn them off at a distance, based off of like the LODs and everything else. So it's more of a wish list item. We're waiting until either computers get a little bit more tech, like get a little more like beefy, and we can increase our minimum spec, or that the Unreal Engine comes out with another world-changing nanite level feature for lighting. Because like the last like world-changing feature was nanite and all of the features in chaos for like destruction and all that stuff, which we're gonna segue into in a moment. Because yeah, so the next thing really is the chaos destruction, and this is something that again we've been talking about for years, and we've been saving it for when we added in the Abrams, because we wanted it to basically be based off of like the physical destruction, the verticality of like not verticality, but the mass of these vehicles being able to like no, I can drive through this object and it will destroy it and it will clear a path for other units, or being able to shoot a wall or throw a grenade and it will destroy said object or it will chunk them. So we were originally going to use physics, and then we realized that it was going to be deprecated. So we were like, why would we implement an entire aspect of game, like an aspect of features of gameplay a couple of years ago that was going to be deprecated and was going to be inadequate? So we held off on it. And finally, with Unreal Engine 5, in the last 6 months or so, Chaos came out of beta. Now, mind you, we like to wait at least an additional 6 months to 8 months for it to be battle tested and be more performant. Because we had a lot of crashes when we switched over to Niagara when it was ready, supposedly, and it wasn't. So we ended up having to like deal with those crashes and those growing pains of like using some of the more like in-tune VFX that Fortnite uses. So now we're at a point where we're like, okay, we don't have to put this off anymore. Now we just need a line item, put it on the roadmap. So when you see the Abrams come in, there's going to be an assumption. The general assumption will be right that we're going to go back and we're going to decimate and we're going to break entire segments of the levels to open up the battlefield to be more dynamic. So now you throw a grenade in a like wooded area, like trees. The trees will splinter. If you throw a grenade in like Chelsea's Villa, center bottom area of Treasure Island, where you have all those nice modern white homes, um, those fences will break. Cars can drive through those fences based off of their mass. So like the striker could just Kool-Aid Man through those wood fences. The Abrams could go through concrete walls. So it's one of those things where like you're gonna notice that like obstacles that were obstacles before aren't for you, but guess what? They're also not for the Juggernaut as well. Because you figure he's gonna be Kool-Aid Man through areas that you used to just I could just wall off this little like metal fence here because I played the game for 3 years and based off of the rules of the old game, he can't go through that park fence. He can't go through this little concrete slab wall. Not anymore. So he'll be able to just run right through the wall, is the idea. So anything your Abrams can destroy, the Juggernaut will be able to destroy. He'll be able to open up new fronts. You'll have to think more strategically in terms of how you build. So it's one of those things where basically we're kind of like earmarking it to just come in at the same time as the Abrams, and to push that tech of destruction to kind of make things more dynamic and more visceral and more involved in terms of how you go about destroying things. Because it's going to affect how you go about repairing it, fortifying it, building in those locations. Because, I mean, the general idea is every area you take, you're going to have to pacify, build over, and, like, make your own to secure it. So now you have to think about, like, well, I destroyed all these segments, but theoretically, if a Juggernaut came, he could break it. So it doesn't really matter. I got to close off these walls now, or just think differently in how you build. So that'll be another interesting change that comes down the pipe in terms of basically with the Abrams and with the with the changes that are proposed there. Then realistically, the last thing, chaos, strategic, recent carrier changes, super units. We mentioned the airfields, and then I think that's pretty much everything. I mean, you figure, is there any other questions you want to pick out since it's interesting from it's the channels? Let me check the YouTubes.
I was about to say I saw a few, but I think they got buried.
I think they did. If anyone wants to re-mention their questions, I'll give some time to answer some questions.
So, someone by the name of Dumb Brick. What a name. Anyway, asked, since I've heard about the TBA jets coming eventually, I've got a question about them and how they would work. Would they work within a 3D plan or the 2D plan? And what the TBA jet's purpose would be in the future?
What was the part he said about the plan? He mean plane?
I'm not sure.
Where is that question?
3D plane or 3D or 2D plane. That makes a bit more sense. Yeah,
We would have to use the 3D plane because they would have to know way in advance how to go up and how to go down. And basically, it would almost be like, essentially we take the helicopter AI and we make it to where they can't turn on a dime and they have to turn over time. And the idea would be, I mean, if I were to pick a game like to mirror, to emulate, it would probably be Command & Conquer Zero Hour when it comes to like how their planes operate. Where it's like they have a fixed amount of ammo, they leave from the aircraft carrier, they're very precision-based weapons. They hit a location, they go back, and then they wait for orders. And then the idea would be is that you can set them to like continually keep coming out to give air support. So the idea would be is that like they're weaker than airstrikes, but they're still useful. They can still save you in a pinch by basically like giving like air support against a Juggernaut. Like you save them in reserve and you just kind of have them circling in the water, and then a Juggernaut pops out and it's like surprise. Then you could just grab those jets and immediately just tell them to do a direct fire on them. So, but I mean realistically we're so early out from that like it's all speculative, and it might change based off of like we might add like the ability to change out their weapons or things here and there. Because one of the biggest things is that we need to add more infected types to the AI. So we don't want to make CERC too overpowered to where like there's no challenge anymore. So what might end up happening is that we might put that off until we can give the infected like the whales, the Chelsea's elite guard, the Chimera dog, and then one more air unit, and then that might be the more logical time to put in the Air Force kind of stuff and kind of push that. Um, for the Marine question, I think it's going to be like 4 to 6.
Yeah, 4 to 6 makes sense.
I think that based off of yeah. All right, what else we got? Hit us with a couple more. Let me check YouTube again, see if anyone has any questions.
Terran Creation asks, are resources shared in co-op like cash and pop count?
Yes. So the idea is that the game host, we're calling it the game master. It's like Solaris co-op mode, the experimental mode for like or like Halo Wars to a certain degree, where everything is shared, the buildings, population, money, everything. But we're playing with the idea that the host can. It's almost like a monopoly, like game master. We can be like, oh, here, you can have this population, you can have this much money, and you can basically give people allowances or whatever. So that was something we wanted to play with and experiment. But it's all speculative in terms of when we get to that point. We have UIs drawn up for it. We have proof of concepts. Now it's just a matter of we need to just do it and then have a private beta and see how it goes. Because you figure there's a lot in co-op that's just kind of speculative that we just need to see, okay, these are great plans, but do they work when things are actually true and tested? Because one of the plans that I have is I want to make it to where you can have a crap ton of operators playing like Battlefield or Call of Duty. And then you can have 4 players that are locked into RTS and operator mode. But those are like, one of those things where it's like we got to test that and see does the game engine facilitate that, and how far can players be away from each other if we do that? Because I don't know if we'll have to do the Age of Conan thing where we have to have a tether when you're in the operator mode. Because if you think about it, every player is stimulating and waking up the infected in their area, their coves, to where it's like, you'd always have to put the game on a dedicated server for pure processing power if you didn't have a tether. So it's one of those things where we have to kind of just, figure it out when we get to that point and just adjust as needed. Any other questions there, Var?
Can we take control of other units other than our agent? Now I suggest
Agent? You mean operator?
Operator.
No. The plan is to keep the operator. So you're gonna get more operators. Right now, we've been using CPO or Cepheus Protocol Firefight to stress test and figure out like the ideal way of like how do people want a third-person shooter to play, and then we're gonna start backporting that in the next week or so to Cepheus Protocol. So bundled in with the other experimental stuff, you're gonna start seeing like a better shooting and a better handling, and then when we get to the official line item on the roadmap, me and Derek will get together and we'll add it to where you can start to build like a team of operators. So the idea would be is if you don't want to recruit a bunch of assaults or heavies or snipers, you can make your own custom units. You can choose off of a preset assortment of cosmetics. You can choose their abilities. You can level them up like throughout game sessions. And you can play them in third person, or you can play them in RTS, like Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 2, where it's like it's a create a hero, but there's no limit on how many heroes you can bring into the field besides population and money. So it's one of those things where it's like that's the direction we're going in with the operators, so that way people that play by themselves can make crack teams of like, like Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, and each one has a squad leader that you customize and you make. Or you could just have, like an A team and just have Alpha team, which is literally just made up of like hero characters that you've, picked out and designed and made them where that's the healer, that's the sniper, that's the assault, that's the, heavy. That's the direction we want to go in, where it's like, you can play it however you want. when it comes down to the operators. And then or you could just have custom operators where your friends come in and they play as the operators, and you're playing an RTS, and you're playing logistics, and they're playing Call of Duty. So the idea is I want to be able to bring together people that don't like RTSs or people that do like RTSs, because we all have those friends that will only play Call of Duty or Battlefield. So if they're happy and you're happy, then it's great, because then it's like, okay, they can go and make their fire teams, and they can run around the map, and they can do missions that the RTS players give them. The RTS players can give them objectives and be like, okay, well, I'm building this and setting up the money and building reinforcements. I want you to capture A, B, and C, and I'm going to mark them on the map as waypoints. Then the players make their way over there, and they would basically secure those points. And then the logistic players, the RTS players, would come in and basically bring in Chinooks, bring in engineers, and start building. And then the Alpha team, the human players, would push the next point. And then, the RTS players would come in and build there and supplement the FPS players with like additional units so that way they don't get overwhelmed. Like that is my dream and goal for getting the game up to co-op, where it's like the operator and everything just working in perfect synergy, whether it be you're playing by yourself or playing with friends. Anyhow, what else we got, Derivar?
Will mods work with co-op?
That's the goal. Yeah, I mean, you figure if we have to get the game. So around the time that we do co-op, at the same time we have to figure out, do we do modding now or do we save it for after the single player? Because modding is coming regardless. Modding is great. Like, I can't wait till people change out all the infected velociraptors, and you know what I mean, or like starship troopers, like xenomorphs, whatever. So it's like that is on our goal, and it's kind of like the infected thing, where the idea is that we're slowly but surely cleaning up our code base. We're slowly but surely learning the best practices. And a good segue into that is that the Fortnite SDK was great because it got released, and as it evolves and matures, we're going to be looking at their SDK. We're going to be looking at Squad's SDK. We're going to be looking at Insurgency's SDK and Satisfactory. And we're going to pick the best, the pros and the cons, and what we can do and what we can allow people to do based off of how the game is programmed, and then give those tools out to people. But in my mind, that's regardless, it's either before or after the campaign. Regardless, it's before we leave early access. In my mind, everything that we promised, everything on that roadmap that we have, the game isn't done to leave early access till we finish 1.4, 1.5-ish, which is basically everything that we're talking about. So modding is up there, and literally, one of my other programmers is just literally a modding fiend. So, he's always just we gotta do this, we gotta do it that way, we gotta think about modding for this. So there's always that thought behind us, there in terms of okay, we need to kind of plan it for usability, but also make it easy for artists to work with, but also kind of do as much as we can to accommodate what would this be like for modders. The doctrines, for example, were made so modding would be theoretically easy, where all you do is you go in. It's if you knew how to script and program, you can make doctrines and unlockables, and then you put it into a folder, and then the game will automatically detect those data assets, register them, and then be able to people can make their own custom doctrines. So that was one of the things that we talked about, is being able to override, get rid of, add doctrines to the game, replacing unit skins, replacing weapons, replacing infected, and then obviously changing health and all those other fun things. So those are all things that we're looking at. They're preliminary stuff, a total conversion mod. People just don't like our weapon balancing, and they just want to go in there and make, I don't know, Roger's weapon balancing pack, realistic, whatever the hell they want to do. At the end of the day, that's the goal. It's just getting to that point. It's you figure it's running up a hill. Is that you figure we just need to get all the ducks in a row, get the last line items done on the roadmap, get the co-op, get that out, and then at that point, figure out, is the code base good enough, or do we want to put it off a little bit longer for single player and then come back to it and spend maybe 3 to 6 months in private tests and hunt down some good modders in different communities and be like, hey, do you want to test our SDK and tell us if it's trash or not? And then from there, then get to the point of like a public beta. Um, any other good questions you can think of, Derivar? Because we got to wrap it up. Wrap it up.
I guess we can do this one for the last one. When the zombie, hold on, another one. For when zombies are playable, do you have to control zombies by yourself, or do you have to order them to where to move and attack?
To be honest, it's all just written in a game design doc, and it's very speculative at this point. In my mind, it would work kind of like, what's that game? If you like the Zerg, but you not as much micromanaging for spreading. So the idea, Plague Inc. Actually, sorry, Plague Inc. is a good example. Where the idea is that you would start passive infections in zones and passively create infected, and then convert those infected individuals over to buy units. So you would start out with Chelsea. You would have played Age of Mythology, Cat and Mouse kind of deal, maybe, I don't know, but kind of like that, where like you start out as like that one unit, you go around, you infect people, you would basically start passive infections in zones, and then slowly but surely you'd build an army. So you'd start out with just Chelsea, and then slowly but surely you'd gain the DNA and the population to be able to build lieutenants, to be able to build the standard special, and to basically start farming enough points for Juggernaut spawns, Leviathan spawns, Bird spawns, because those are her super weapons. And then that's the general direction we're going in. And then the idea would be is to use her hive or other side structures to basically research into like spreading infection passively more efficiently. Like that's basically what we have written down. That's basically what I want to do. But you figure it's like we're really far out from that. Like you figure that's not even on. I don't think that's even on the roadmap website. Is it playing as the infected? Let me check. Is it? I don't think we ever put that up. It's more something that we talk about, and it's like it almost feel like a Plague Inc. combined with Cat and Mouse Age of Mythology kind of gameplay, where it's like you essentially have to like bide your time, get and just kind of slowly stay away from CERC and build up your power. Let me see. Let me go to the roadmap and see if that's on there. I don't believe it is. Yeah, it is actually. Play as infected Chelsea. So I guess we did put that. It's on the TBD section. Here, I'll link that in the channel. So you guys know what I'm talking about. Here's Notion. Really good website. I try and update that every 1 to 2 weeks based off of just what's going on and what we're doing at any given time. If a new item gets added, sometimes items get added, then we'll put it up there. And yeah, that Notion, Cepheus Protocol, Notion.site, or you can find it on our website, or you can find it on the homepage of the game when you open it. It's a really good site for just tracking visually, and then keep in mind, I actually have to update the co-op ticker to 40%. I think it's at like 20% or something like that, so I gotta update to 20 because we've actually knocked out quite a few other cards. So just keep in mind that like next experimental or like the patch after that, I'll change the percent on the co-op countdown ticker. I need to actually start the build cooking process so you guys can get the carrier when we leave. Let me go ahead and start that, so that way you guys can check out the new carrier changes for when I go offline. Any other questions you want to hit up, Derivar, or you want to end it there?
I think it's the last one.
Okay.
When the zombie become a playable faction, will the zombies will the zombies have their own version of the operator co-op?
That's a good goddamn question.
That's a good goddamn question.
And that's one of those things where it's like everything that CERC has, the infected have to get. It has to be some kind of counter. There has to be some kind of way of like generally doing it, but it's distinctly different. It's not a one-to-one recreation because that's boring. So I have to kind of figure that out. Because you figure, again, that's like, I think at that point, playing as the infected is after we release. I would say that playing as the infected is probably after we release an early access. And it's kind of one of those icing on the cake kind of things. Because realistically, she would have to get some kind of lieutenant that's customizable almost. You know, something along those lines. So I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like that's still far out. I haven't even I thought about it, but I don't have a concrete plan for it yet. Um, yeah, let's grab Tom real fast. Look, he's been waiting for a while. What's up, Tom?
Yeah, I do have a question about when you get changed about the man say about the for the AI back should have like a debris from the zones and for structure like getting like ammo or medical supplies for the survivors back,
Uh-huh.
including the fuel stations. So how does it change the faction's behavior if they go to war at each other's throats?
Well, the basic idea would be is that they would take those zones, and then based off of their personalities, they already roll every once in a while a morality, where it's like, do I want to kind of go evil? Like, cause they roll a primary personality and then they roll a sub personality, and that one will both of them will sometimes dictate like, do I want to go to war with these resources? Do I need them? Because the idea is that it would basically we'd probably end up just converting it to supply for them. I'll simplify it so that it would funnel their growth faster in some aspects of their development. If they own it, they're gonna want to keep on to it, and if they're not allied with them, then they won't let you use it. Because that would be another incentive to ally with groups. Is in that way you don't have to go to war if you want to use the resource. You just go over there and use it, and then you're good. The infected will be aware of it. They can't use it. They'll just know, and then if you're there, they'll try and prioritize that over other zones. So it kind of comes down to
Uh,
the AI and how they perceive the world.
so like you gotta make your decision who you gonna go with. Because if you go to the left side, you will betray the right side. But if you go to the right side, you betray the left side.
Well,
And
when
you
it
know that
comes,
marks you as their enemies.
I mean, because the thing is that you figure it's not going to be that like clean. It might be more patches where it's like this group is a militarist group and they hate you for whatever reason because they just roll to be a little more aggressive than the other groups, and there might be an incentive for them to take a gas station. You know, so it's going to be more random. It's going to be more like you have to kind of like check your diplomacy tab, see what kind of personality they kind of like showing. I don't. I don't think we do a good enough job actually showing the personalities that we roll. Let me write that down actually, because you figure I don't even think you guys even knew we roll personalities for them.
Yeah, it's like
Rolling.
imagine they'll try to target your face like they try to knock you out.
Let me write that down.
You know,
Yeah, I'm
I
gonna write that
imagine
down.
Chelsea, I imagine like if Chelsea sees you abandon your mission, she'll just mock you for coward. Imagine that.
No, I get what you mean. I think you figure it's
Like
one of
she'll
those things.
say,
Yeah.
like I was gonna say, imagine if Chelsea calls you out, start breaking force by saying that player decides to bail out of the mission. What a coward.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. Um,
Yeah.
I guess it's gonna come down to testing and playtesting because you figure, like right now when it comes to that, it's gonna be we don't want to make it too frustrating. We want to make it to where basically they fight over it and they try and occupy it. So it'll more so just be treating people that are more nice, and then fighting off the people that are just dicks or are starting to become dicks, or you just want the resource for yourself. Um,
I was gonna say, or you could just sit there and watch them sort themselves out.
yeah, that's another thing. We let them fight it out, or you just let Chelsea take them out, and then you come in there and you pacify it when she's weak, or when she's basically her attention is diverted somewhere else.
Yeah,
Um,
like you tried to bring a trap.
Essentially. But thank you for the question. I'm going to pop you down. And then there was one more question that there's two questions I wanted to answer real fast. So, Grand Moff Tarkin asked the question about I hope infected make use of strategic resources. So,
Yeah, I saw that one. That's actually a really good one. That one.
this is a complicated one because you figure the reason why we're introducing strategic resources is in the long term to be able to have Chelsea to use them, but right now she's not going to. She's going to protect them. She's going to know you need them. But in terms of like expanding it, that's more of a wishlist item for the infected, is being able to make it to where like, because we were going, there was a discussion internally long term about making it to where Juggernaut tokens and Leviathan tokens were going to be based off of strategic resources like the aircraft carrier. For the sake of not making the game too easy until we have a more permanent solution, we were going to go in that direction of keeping it how it is now, and then when we have more time and we're not on such a crunch, we were going to R&D and experiment with that idea of hospitals, or maybe just adding new strategic resources like body burial sites, because there are mass graves all over the map. With the idea that that's where she would, yeah, that's where she would farm and create worms, or like that's where she would, create the Juggernaut as like as certain types of facilities that she kind of like converts to her usage. So you're not far off from what we're talking about internally. We just don't have the resources yet to, I believe, do that correctly. So we're leaving it alone just so we can at least keep the difficulty higher for the Juggernauts until we can pull that off correctly. Because again, that's more of like an extra line item that we're just kind of putting off on the backlog until we can get to it.
So mass graves are just there to make the forbidden gummy worm.
Essentially, that's something that we had discussed internally, and it's something that we want to experiment with. And then going into Delta's question is that you figure it's the idea is that we drop in, drop out. It's peer to peer like Stellaris, and you figure it's going to come down to basically just kind of whoever hosts is going to have a good computer. That's just the reality of the situation, because our computer is going to be doing most of the calculations and most of the math. So when we get to that point, you're going to see the Discord get redone completely, because we're probably going to have a bot where you can talk to it and you can have it create voice channels dynamically for people that want to play together. Kind of like how the Division Discord does theirs. And then, when we get to that point, you guys will get to play test it. You guys will be able to tell us what you like and what you don't like, and then we'll edit from there. Because you figure co-op is going to be a whole thing for a couple months, where it's going to be like we'll have our private tests with the Patreons and the developers, and then from there, once we feel like it's public, it's safe and stable enough, then we'll have our open beta test where we put it up on experimental, and then from that point it'll probably be an open beta for a couple months, and then at that point when we feel like it's stable, we found all the bugs, when it's balanced, and then at that point we release it. So you figure, like, it just kind of comes down to, right now, what I foresee us to kind of be slapping us around the most to stop us from getting to co-op really soon is going to be the Doctrine, the CERC changes, and the AI changes. If I had to guess, those are the two things that are just going to kind of, like, be really difficult and could kind of balloon a little bit longer. Well, we'll be doing our best to basically try and get it done as quickly as possible for when it comes to those, because like you figure, the Doctrine Circ changes also grandfather in the DNA research tree. So hopefully we can get to the co-op by the end of this quarter. Worst case, it would be in the middle to next of the next quarter, but it's kind of just, I don't want to rush it. The game is going to take the time that it takes to get to the perfection it needs to be, and there were periods of time where I would rush ahead, and then the game was more buggy and more unstable for it, just because a lot of people just wanted this or that system. So I think that with the civilians, even there are some things, dynamic civilian groups, that I felt we should have waited a little bit longer for. But I think at this time, for like the carrier, the Doctrine, the CERC stuff, it's just going to take the time it takes. Because I want to make sure that when we leave the Doctrine and the CERC polish, we have some time allocated to kind of clean up and change some stuff with the UI. We have some time allocated to clean up the DNA scanners and make them more useful. And I want to change some of the civilian evacuation stuff because it's not obvious and it can be very buggy at times. So it's going to be basically like, it's going to be a total facelift for the CERC and the Doctrine stuff. So that way we don't have to go back to it and there's no changes. It's just what we see is what you get for the CERC and the Doctrine stuff. It's locked in. And anything we do beyond that is going to be like DLC add-on stuff, like making like a Pyromancer DLC, or like adding in Evil CERC, where you weaponize the virus. It's going to be brand new doctoral sections that change the way you play the game on a fundamental basis. But those are going to be like after we leave early access, is when we do those kind of things. But yeah, that's the plan, that's the goal. is regardless is to be out of early access by the end of the year. And by the way, I gotta thank you guys for your patience because you figure it has been a long road in terms of basically like the roadmap. Because I think someone posted a roadmap we're supposed to have co-op out like a year ago, and it was just kind of like the game would be in a worse state. It'd be horrible if we had put co-op in at that point because the game just isn't. It still has a long way to go. It has a long way to grow. There's a lot of improvements that need to happen. There are aspects of gameplay that I'm just not happy with, like the AI, like the how fleshed out the CERC are, where I feel like it would be a disservice to just rush ahead do co-op and then you have a game that just it's not where it needs to be, if that almost makes sense. So for me, that's why I'm kind of like holding my ground where it's like it'd be great to have co-op in right now, but the game needs to be like perfect. It needs to be solidified in my mind. So and again, like we still get, like the like give you guys an example. Like something before we do co-op is we need to get a better the new player introduction's atrocious. I think Splattercat covered this yesterday, and there was a comment in the thing where someone said that they bought the game and they played it and they could not figure out what the damn chime sound was that was going off every 20 to 30 seconds was, so they stopped playing the game because of it. And they were like, this game has really terrible new player introductions. And I was like, yep, we have our new game introduction is hot garbage. And I think that was one of the most upvoted comments on that video that got posted the other day. Because I was just honest. Where it was just kind of like, yeah, that's an aspect that we need to do better on. And it's like, after we finish 1.3, going into 1.4, and we stop adding in the core features that I feel like need to be in there, then it's going to be going back and just kind of cleaning all that up and adding better tutorials and adding prompts and just kind of explaining the game. And then boom, like then it's, co-op and all the other fun stuff. So it's like, just keep that in mind. Because I know that I've kind of seen it online where like we keep blowing through the deadlines, we keep missing things, and it's like also keep in mind we're 5 people and we all have day jobs. So we come home from work and we work on this game. So like you figure it's one of those things where it's like people get sick, we announce something and then the deadline we overshoot it because we got stabbed in the foot because someone had to go into work or a bug happens, or a performance issue. Someone reports something, and we have to stop everything, and every programmer has to be moved over to fix that fatal bug or that crash or that instability. So just keep your patience. We're gonna keep our transparency. We're gonna keep communicating with you guys, and we'll keep that front always going. And then we need to get another we need to get another video out for like the YouTube grow out too soon. So we'll be doing that soon. Just to kind of update the people on YouTube that aren't on Discord every day or don't want to be on Discord. But yeah, that's my spiel. I just wanted to add that in there in the end. And yeah, I really hope you guys are enjoying the game and loving it. And just give us a little more time to kind of work out these pitfalls, I would say. Back to you, Darvar, because I went on one of my rants again.
Well, I mean, like the rants there.
Yeah. I
Like,
cry every time.
you
Well,
cry every time.
Well, I mean, because you figure it's just one of those things where it's like I just want to get it out there. Is that like I think people realize that because of our presentation, because of our YouTube, like our live stream, they assume we're like 20 people, and we're funded, and we have like a lot of money, and no, it's like 2 programmers, 2 level designer modelers, 1 animator, and like I think 1 other, and then 1 character modeler that works every once in a while, like probably a couple days a week, because he has a very strenuous day job. So it's like I think that sometimes people can get like, I think justifiably impatient because they're excited. They want the game to be done. They want the game to be to be great and have all these features and mechanics in there, but they don't realize the human aspect of it, where it's like it can be very stressful, but it's really rewarding. If that makes any sense. So yeah, it's always fun. Yeah. Well, you saw the thread from the other day. Yeah, on the Steam forums. It was just kind of like, I understand where he's coming from in some regards, but it's like, what else do you want us to do? Like, you know what I mean? For like deadlines and roadmaps, like we're doing the
Oh,
best we can of what we have. So it's like I understand it, so I can't really
now,
get that mad.
there is one more thing that is a bit off topic.
My body is ready.
That me and a few of the community members discussed when we were in general comms up
Oh
here,
no.
right? When we were playing Gartic Phone and whatnot,
Okay.
right? Why don't we set up a game night session, whatever, game event every Friday?
We want to have the moderators run that. I feel like we should get moderators that like to set up game nights so we don't have to babysit it all the time. Because I'm totally for that. Because like I like to do movie nights with zombies or like horror stuff, and then I'd also like to do like game nights. But I don't know. I've seen Big Fry's Discord do movie nights, so I think it's okay.
I'd be happy to run the game nights.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I was gonna reach out to Big Fry and see like do they ever get in trouble for that? Cause like I know they do it, and I'd love to do like movie nights. Like I think they watched Die Hard recently or whatever, and I was like, huh, that's really cool. I want to try that. Cause like I'd love to like watch 28 Weeks Later or 28 Days Later or like any of this other stuff, but I don't know if you get in trouble for those. So it's like,
I mean, like, as long as you're like sharing it among community and not on like YouTube and Twitch and whatnot, then you're fine.
I think you're fine.
Because on Discord, like I was with having movie night in another Discord I'm in,
How many people were in
and
it?
like 40 or 50 people.
And they never got flagged or whatever, got in trouble, whatever. I don't know.
Not once, never.
Oh. Oh yeah, because I want to do movie nights. That'd be cool. Because everyone here likes zombies. Everyone here likes movie stuff, like military stuff. So it'd be cool just to kind of have that on like Saturday nights or whatever. I don't know, or even Sundays. But I'll have to look into that and then talk to some other influencers and see what they do, how they handle it. Um, but yeah, because like I love to watch like what's that movie I'm thinking of? Even just The Walking Dead would be fun. I love The Walking Dead.
Not
uh,
that shitty fucking Battlestar that you watch.
are you talking shit on Battlestar Galactica?
I'm talking shit about the Battlestar Galactica you watch. I love the fucking 1971 one.
I like the
1978.
2004 one, or 2008 one, whatever it is.
1978 is the fucking OG best one.
I don't like that one. I'm sorry. Oh, Generation Kill's great. I watched that recently. We were watching that for inspiration and reference for the Humvees. Actually, we spent like a day just binging all of them, to just take pictures and just look at all the variations that they used in that war for like, and that was what gave us all the ideas for the current Humvees that we have, the Ajax, sorry. So yeah, we definitely watch a lot of movies, and then even what was that Contagion movie that came out? What was it? It was like an old American movie. That was where I got the idea for the civilian evacuations and kind of how that would work. It was like some doctor, and basically they close off a town, and the civilians get really mad and try and escape, and like it follows like this one guy, Wildfire. I don't know what it was. It was like some like far out there like government conspiracy movie, but it was great. I loved it. Um, are we just posting Battlestar Galactica now? There's only one true Battlestar Galactica, and it's the modern reimagining.
No, there is only one true, and that is the old original.
I hate all of you.
The
Cylons.
old original is the best.
No.
You know what? You know what I think of your bullshit.
I'm the only one that likes Battlestar Galactica. Oh, you know what?
There you
They're
go.
actually, yeah, Grandma Tarkin's my boy. He likes it. So there you go. He agrees with
He's
me.
Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, we got some people that know what I'm talking about.
Nah, the old one is just the original is just the best.
You know what? I'm gonna watch Battlestar Galactica now while I eat my sandwich after this AMA and put the build out, just to sour you. I need
mean,
I have to watch. But I'm gonna what
you're
is
a
it on?
heathen. You're a
What it?
heathen if you like the remake. The remake is just terrible.
No, I love it.
The,
I can't watch the original.
what the fuck is with the shaky cam? Every time something happens, just shaky cam.
It's visceral. It gets you into the moment.
And
Don't get me wrong, I
slows
wouldn't do
down,
it, but that's what. Yeah,
every time the camera focuses on something new arriving, shaky cam.
it's
Gives you
visceral.
fucking
Does that really get you sick?
yeah, it does. It's terrible.
Oh, I'll pray for you, cause
It's nausea-inducing.
I don't have that problem. It's great. Like I watch that show. Like my
Even
favorite plot line is the coup. That's like the best season when they all try to turn against Adama. That was like one of the best seasons ever. And then they kill the original Lee, the actor.
yeah,
Yeah,
they fucking killed the original Leodama. Oh,
yeah, they put him
I
against
hate
the
that.
bulkhead
They-
because he tried to lead
they-
that insurrection.
I hate the fact that they kill the original actor for Lee.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that he was actually at a Comic-Con in California, and I actually like asked him about that, like how was it like filming that, and he actually liked it. He liked the reimagining, cause like
He had no
what?
other choice but to like it. He was getting paid.
I know, but I'm just saying is this was after the fact. Like he doesn't work with them anymore, and it was in I think it was Sacramento Comic Con that I went to, and he was there signing autographs or whatever, and he was just like, yeah, like he liked it. Like I don't know what to tell you there. So he was cool though. I didn't get to pay for an autograph though, because I was broke indie dev, so I couldn't afford any autographs. I just came up and asked the question and then ran away. I felt so bad because everyone else in the line was paying, like because you have to pay for an autograph when you go, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I didn't pay. Like I just went up and asked him a couple questions, and I think he was kind of annoyed too. So I felt so bad. I ran away. I asked my like 2 questions. And then because that was when I had just finished watching Battlestar, and he was like in a nearby Comic Con, so I couldn't resist.
You broke bitch.
I know. It is what it is. That was actually a fun fact around the time we first started prototyping the game. So we were all working even more hardcore at our day jobs. Like I was literally coming home and punching an energy drink every night. So I'd like work from like 7 o'clock to like 3, and then basically I get home and get drink an energy drink every night. And that was when we used to do those NEDB blogs. So if you go on NEDB, you can track our progress of development going back to 2017. It was like 2017, 2018.
Just go to the Wayback Machine and you can see the old website.
Yeah, but you don't even need to do that if you go to our NEDB. You can literally go to our first blog post and see how dog shit our gameplay was. Like, on the UI. Oh, yeah. Starbuck was still hot in the reimagining, I'm sorry. And she plays Bo-Katan in The Mandalorian, so you can't go wrong.
I mean, Bo-Katan was an awesome character, very well written, except for season
Did you watch the Clone Wars?
Yeah, of course I watched Clone Wars.
Okay, I'm just curious, because like you figure, I just barely watch Rebels.
You should be able. You should see on Disney that I've been watching it.
Oh, that's right, because I let you use my Disney Plus. I forgot. No, I don't. Oh, that's right, you use my profile. That's right. I was wondering what all that random shit thing was. I forget sometimes when I log into Disney Plus and it's like, who the fuck is watching Simpsons so goddamn much? Is someone like creeping on my thing, and then I forget you watch it on there.
Yeah.
But then you're in Australia, so you get the weird shit that we don't get, even though you're on the same profile. You get like adult shows on Disney Plus. We only get kid shows in America.
Oh yeah, because the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and Clone Wars are all kid shows.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about like you got like what was it, that one horror movie or TV? You got like a PG-13 movie on yours, and we don't even get those. You have to go to Hulu for those.
I can hang on. I can probably rattle some off right now. Hang on.
Oh yeah, Grandma Tarkin gets it, even though she's crazy. Yep.
I fucking hate that Starbuck. Like it's the original Starbuck was just the best.
I'm gonna watch this now. I'm gonna find it on streaming, and I'm gonna take a picture of it, just to spite you.
Yeah, well, bitch. That's what you are.
Oh no. What is it streaming on?
Yeah, Daughters of the
I have
Daughters.
I have the entire box set, and I don't have a Blu-ray because no one has who has a Blu-ray player on their computer anymore. Anyone? Raise your hand.
I do.
What?
I do.
What the fuck? What do you mean you got a
I do.
Blu-ray player on your computer?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
It's
Wait, hold
it's
on.
9 years old.
Am I the only one that doesn't have a Blu-ray player on their computer? I feel kind of. Wait, really?
My Robert. My computer is 9 years old.
Wait, okay, wait. How old are your guys' computers that you have Blu-ray players on your computer? Educate me. Are they old or
I know
they
what
new? Like, was it a conscious decision to put the Blu-ray player on your computer?
mine was custom design.
Okay, so they all got grandfathered into the Blu-ray. Yeah, it sounds like they all got grandfathered in because nowadays computer cases don't come with DVD and CD drive ports anymore. That's why I was astounded. You have to pay extra to get that nowadays. So that's why I'm like, huh. I'm crazy then, I guess. I guess I just bought the one case that didn't have it.
Your desire to basically have a computer the same as NASA has basically crippled you for watching Blu-ray.
I mean, mind you, my computer isn't that good. It's decent.
Bullshit. You have what is it? A fucking 3070 or something?
I have a 3080. I have a 4080. I'll have you know, good sir.
Yeah, 4080. So, kick rocks, you prick.
There are people that have 4090s.
I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah, I have like it's not that old. Oh, I mean I do have to do
You got
game
like
design, so I have to have a pretty decent computer.
You got like a 4080 and like 24 gigs of fucking RAM.
64.
60. Exactly, 64.
I know, but like okay, so, like literally, you think this is funny, but like I have to have a minimum of 32 gigs of RAM just to open up our SDK. Because like you figure, like when you open the open world master map that we have, there's so many raw textures that you have to load, and like your RAM, your VRAM, your processor, your hard drive, they all love you for this. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, I have a crappy computer that I built, and that's the minimum spec computer that we have on Steam store page. And if I open the editor in there, there's a difference of almost minutes. They're just doing like the most basic mundane tasks. It's crazy, just how much of a shift it is in terms of speed.
Mundane? You mean mundane?
Mundane, bite me.
Your dog will.
No, my dog is. Where is my dog? She's by the window because she's mad. She wants to go out and run.
You eating a fucking... Did you just eat a passion fruit?
Yes, she
on
did.
its own?
Yes, the dog
Did
did.
you just eat... Are you seriously just eating a fucking passion fruit on its own? Oh my...
Probably. But anyhow, let me
you-
see.
Hold on a second. How the fuck...
I guess he's talking to his dog. I don't know. I think he might just be going crazy.
My mother is eating a fucking passion fruit on its own.
I don't know what a passion fruit is. Is that an Australian thing?
Oh my god, you don't know what a fucking passion fruit is?
Is that an Australian thing again? Because like you guys
No.
call like toilet paper balrogs, balrogs,
Bog roll.
bog rolls. So I don't know. I literally don't know. Sometimes I'm talking to Durbar and he says a word and I'm just like, what the fuck does that
Yeah,
mean?
Google a fucking passion fruit.
Passion
Huh?
fruit.
Yeah, the bowl of watermelon juice.
Ew. Why would you eat that by itself?
Never heard of bog roll, but that's... but damn, that's funny. Bog roll, it's shitter paper.
Oh God, here we go. We're going into Australian vocabulary, dang it.
Shitter paper? Dunny pipe?
There was a day where fucking me and Michael were in a room, just like we were just like, what are you talking about? And then we mentioned the emus, and then it was over.
You know, emu, not emu.
The famous emu war.
No, not emu, fuck ya, it's emu,
EMU, it's okay. You guys still lost your emu war. You needed
I don't
more
care if we
machine.
lost it.
You needed more machine guns.
I don't give a rat's ass if we lost the war against the emus.
Oh god, it's happening. Alright, well then I'm gonna cut it short because I'm gonna take my dog out. She wants to go out and play. My Aussie, I have an Australian Shepherd. We've already gone over our time. Durva, you want to give the outro? Okay. So thank you guys for coming. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to come out and just listen, hear what's going on. In about 5 to 10 minutes, a patch will go up. Patch notes will be out probably in the next couple hours after that. You'll be able to build on the carrier with this new patch. Um, and do keep in mind, if you guys want to support development outside of just buying the game, consider picking up some of the cosmetic support packs we have for the vehicles. So consider our Patreon, consider our Discord pledge system. They do help. They do help kind of, like get things through and whatnot. And you guys have a good evening, and thank you guys so much for coming.